Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another HD broadcast, and today we're going to be looking at a Terran tutorial on how Terran players can hold off that dreaded Zerg Baneling bust that I did detail in a previous tutorial video. And I just want to say right now that I have started to categorize all the tutorial videos. So if you guys go to my channel page and hit playlist at the top, it'll actually categorize all of the tutorials according to race. So there's Protoss tutorial, Terran tutorials, and Zerg tutorials. So hopefully that helps you guys sort through if you guys are just looking to learn the game instead of just watching the game and enjoying some of the pro players playing. So anyways, this is going to be once again how to hold off a Zerg Baneling bust, and of course the most important thing about holding off the Baneling bust is making sure that your wall is as Zergling proof and Baneling proof as possible, and a lot of that comes down with placing buildings behind buildings and making sure that even if your first layer of buildings blow up, your second layer will be able to hold it off. That is basically the basis for how to hold off the Baneling bust, but you don't want to do that in every game against Zerg. And the reason for that is because you can really clutter yourself and make it difficult to maneuver around your base if all your buildings are clumped in one location. So what you got to do is scout. You got to scout the Zerg player, and one major telltale sign of a Zerg player going for a Baneling bust is if they play one base. If they don't go for a fast expand and they have a gas real early on, you have to be able to scan and scout and see that Baneling's nest to tell you that your front door is about to be breached. So anyways, just going to be opening standard here, getting a 12 barracks, getting my gas during that barracks construction, and my basic strategy here was actually just to go mech against this Zerg player here, and you guys can see I'm scouting his base, and I see there's already an extractor, and the spawning pool is starting to morph in. So he already got his extractor. That indicates right away that the Zerg is trying to do some one base tactic. No Zerg, or most Zergs, don't go for gas early on unless they're trying to do like a muta build or Baneling bust. So you have to be able to scout, and what I'm doing here is keeping my SCV inside the Zerg base in the far reach in the corner, and then I'm going to run in there in a minute or so to see exactly what's going on. Now, because there is a possibility he's going to Baneling bust me, since he's getting that fast gas, I'm going to throw my factory at the front door behind the supply depot. The supply depot is the weakest point to a Baneling bust. It is the building with the lowest amount of health, so you have to make sure your supply depots are protected. Now I'm running in with my SCV again. I'm trying to see, is there a Baneling's nest inside the base? My opponent is pretty good. He's got Zerglings already out, so he's probably going to deny that scout, as you guys can see right there, and I'm not going to be able to see the Baneling's nest. Because of that, I'm going to send out another SCV. Scouting is just so crucial in any matchup, so especially right now if he's about to try to kill me, I'm going to send out another SCV and find out exactly what's going on. But you guys can see I have a second factory being placed right at that front door just to protect and make sure that that vulnerable supply depot does not fall. Now here comes the second scouting SCV. I really want to know what is up with my opponent, because he still hasn't grabbed that natural expansion. So that is really, really scary, and so I want to make sure that my front door is as protected as possible. Now I'm using a scan because I was just getting real worried at this point, and you guys can see there is a Baneling's nest. Now I don't really need to scout with my SCV. I see what I need to see. Gonna pull it back and throw a bunker behind this vulnerable supply depot. And really, you guys can see just adding on layer after layer of buildings to make sure it is as foolproof as humanly possible. Now, my strategy this game was to play mech, so I do have two factories, one getting a reactor, one getting a tech lab for researches, and I was pretty much going to go Hellion Siege Tank. That was my strategy here, but it is going to change a little bit now, because you guys can see I'm trying to make myself as Zergling proof and Baneling proof as possible. I was going to run my Hellion out here, but here comes the Baneling bust, and of course it is going to blow up a couple of my supply depots, but it's important right now to try to, even though he's run in with a couple of Zerglings, keep erecting new buildings. You guys can see I'm closing off that gap that was created with new supply depots, and only one Zergling was able to get in because I had that bunker there, I was protected, I killed off the majority of his forces, so no big deal. Now I'm I'm making new supply depots where that gap was to make sure that no additional reinforcing Zerglings can run into my base. Continuing to produce units. My siege tank is out now. Siege mode is on the way. I also have Hellions being produced from the factory with the reactor. And it's important to bring some SCVs and put them on auto repair to keep your buildings alive. A second attempt right here for another Banelings bust. It is going to destroy the bunker and a couple of supply depots again, but he's not doing any actual damage to my economy. I'm still in this game, and as you guys can see, continuing to replace the supply depots as they fall. Another strategy you could do is just throw up a barracks right there as well, which is, you know, a lot more powerful than just a single supply depot. But seeing as how I kept getting supply blocked here, I decided just might as well throw up more depots. And there comes a point where the Baneling bust, they can keep doing it, but eventually it just becomes so weak because you're going to have Hellions, you're going to have siege tanks. It's just not going to be effective as the game continues to progress and you get those tier 2 units out. Now you guys can see I'm researching that Inferno Pre-Igniter. I do have the siege mode ready, and this is the third attempt my opponent's going to try to Baneling bust me, but this time, with that siege mode and the Hellions in position, all of the units get wiped out before any of the buildings even fall. So now my opponent is really far behind because he's been throwing units into nothing this entire time and really just kind of wasting his stuff. And here's my chance really to possibly go for a counterattack if I want. Macro up, get another command center down, but as you guys can see, with this building placement right here, it is extremely difficult for a Baneling bust to be successful. The most important thing is to make sure you always scout your opponent. You guys can see if I had not scanned, if I had not sent my SCV, I wouldn't have seen the one base Zerg play, I wouldn't have seen the fast gas, and I would not have seen the Baneling's nest, and I might have lost the game right now. So scouting is the most important thing you can do in StarCraft. It's one of those tactics, one of those things that every player should master early on. So here goes my counterattack. I'm going to go ahead and send a couple of Hellions in. At this point, pretty much the tutorial, I guess, is kind of done. You can do whatever you want after you protect yourself from the Baneling bust. Just play however you want. Throw down a starport, continue to pump Hellions. What I'm going to do here is just run in with some Hellions and roasty toasty some of those drones. And there you guys see my opponent actually got some mutas. So he's actually quite good. He transitioned from Banelings to mutas off of one base. And that right there was a little scary for me, but I'm going to continue to keep the Hellion harass up. And I actually roasted quite a few drones right there. I think there's only 2 left. And back at base, just pumping as many Marines as I can, and of course reacting to the mutas by getting an engineering bay down so I can get some turrets. So once I hold off the 2 or 3 mutas, and I do have, and I think I have enough Marines to hold that off, along with the turrets coming soon, that pretty much should be GG because I should have a stronger economy than him. In fact, I do, because I've killed off so many of his drones, and there are the Mutalisks. But I do have about 5 or 6 Marines, and that should be enough to hold off a one-base muta attack. And there's the engineering bay finishing and just spamming some turrets down. And once those turrets go up and the mutas fall, that is pretty much going to be game. I don't see any way how my opponent could beat me at this point, as he doesn't have any drones, and his all-in attempts were all for naught. So hopefully this video helps you guys contain and hold off Baneling bust. As I understand, a lot of players were getting busted. A lot of Terran players were, so I felt kind of bad about that, making those cheesy, I guess you could say, videos. But here's a way to counter the Baneling bust. The general idea is scouting. Once you see the one base Zerg play, start throwing up as many buildings as you possibly can. Bunkers are really good behind supply depots because even if the Banelings destroy the bunker, then or the supply depot, then they have to go through a bunker with Marines. So that's a great way to hold it off. Throwing up factories behind your buildings, throwing up a command center behind your buildings is good too. Whatever you can do to protect that front door. Even if it gets cluttered and messy, it's still so important to just protect yourself from allowing Zerglings to get in your base. So there we go. That is pretty much going to be GG, and that is a tutorial video on how you can hold off a Zerg one-base Baneling bust. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that video, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the post-game analysis real quick. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the post-game analysis where we're going to go ahead and take a look at the build order, and this one's going to be real brief because most of it is just the beginning and learning how to protect yourself once you get that scout out and you see the one base Baneling bust. Basically producing SCVs, very standard opening, getting a 12 barracks. I got a 13 refinery because I was planning to go for a mech build, and I was going to throw down 2 factories anyways. And as you guys can see, continuing to just build up normal forces, getting a handful of Marines just to protect my wall, and this is where I get my second factory down. The reason for that was doublefold. One was because I was going to get a second one down anyways, but 2, I also placed it at the front door to help protect any vulnerable weak spots. And really just continuing to pump SCVs and Hellions, and of course getting a tank. This is where I got my bunker, as I did realize my opponent was going to try to bust me. That's where I scanned him, and of course getting a reactor and a tech lab duel at the same time. So I could pump out Hellions and siege tanks and get those upgrades. And most of it is pretty much just reacting how you would react to what your opponent's doing. If my opponent was going to switch up to roaches, then I probably would have gotten more tanks or marauders or something. But I did see that he was going for mutalisks, so I eventually did get an engineering base somewhere down here. Well, that's the pre-igniter upgrade. There's the engineering bay. Also, I guess I threw down an armory too because I was going to switch to Thor's. But yeah, that is pretty much the build order, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial video. And if you're a Terran player, don't get Baneling busted anymore. It's real easy to stop once you guys scout it out and you guys get a little practice at holding it off. Thanks a lot, guys. HD.